priced every day. Remember, for a great choice and good, honest value.
Woodward's has it all. SCTV, we're coming through for you.
Good morning. I hate to make such a public admission on a Monday or any other morning, but the fact of the matter is that I'm one brick short of a load today. Now let me explain how and why I'm one brick short of a load. In my normal, fair, reasoned, sensible manner, we wanted to bring to you today a representation of the mini by-elections taking place in British Columbia. Now, old Billy Bennett isn't sitting over in Victoria biting his nails about it. He couldn't care less, I don't suppose. He probably would like the NDP to win one of the two mini by-elections going on just now. But why am I one brick short of the load? Well, I'll explain it to you just as I go along. This morning we're going to chat up three powerful, vibrant candidates who are running for Vancouver East. And they are Bob Williams, wild Bob Williams, terrible Bob Williams.
Come on now, Jack.
Who is now a nice, quiet guy on the right wing of the NDP party, and he's going to try and win that seat, the Barrett vacancy, for the NDP. And then there's a Liberal, whom you may recall from the distant days of Liberal glories, Art Lee. Federal MP for 5 years. He's, believe it or not, running for the Liberal parties who got a handful of votes in the provincial general election last time. So you've got Lee. And then we have a well-known social creditor. At least he's a well-known guy. I didn't even know he was a social creditor. His name is Mario Caravetta. And the name Mario Caravetta brings to you at once all the visions of the PNE. Now that's in Vancouver East, the three principal candidates. Then there's another one on, a big by-election on, in Okanagan North. And there are two principal candidates. On here, and will be on the program, is Lyle MacWilliam, who is a 35-year-old teacher from Vernon Senior High School. But the reason I'm one brick short of a load is that the social credit candidate wouldn't come. Now, I couldn't go up there, so we did the next best thing. We invited him down here. What's his name, somebody? Harold Thorlaxson. This is a by-election up there to fill the vacancy caused by the unfortunate death of the sitting MLA. Now, it's not that we didn't try to get Thorlaxson here, Premier Bennett, please, sir. We asked Thorlaxson, we asked his office boy, we asked the Social Credit Party, we asked Melody Harris. We pleaded on our hands and knees. Please send us your social credit candidate down to sit beside the NDP. They wouldn't come. So don't blame me if I'm one brick short of a load. Blame social credit. We'll tackle Vancouver East, the three of them, and attempt to keep them in some kind of sane and sensible order and reasonable conversation after the break. A week come Thursday, November the 8th, these three very nice, civilized guys will run for the vacancy caused by the defection of poor David Barrett into privatization of his own particular economy. But I have the three principal candidates here this morning, and just in case you've lost track of them, Bob Williams. What have you been doing all these years you haven't been in the house, Bob? Building condos or what? Hey?
A whole range of things, Jack.
No, tell me honestly. Bob Williams, of course, former minister in the Social Credit government, very tough, often regarded as the best minister of forest by some people in the forest industry, only some that BC ever had. And he just kind of vanished, didn't you, Bob?
Well, no,
Oh, you ran for the leadership, didn't you?
No, I didn't.
What was the time you got up and fled away from the press conference? What was that?
No.
What was that, Bob?
You've got the Monday morning growlies or something,
no.
Mr. Webster.
Just
In terms of what I have been doing, I've been teaching at Simon Fraser, teaching at UBC. I owned a hotel and run a pub. That's a range of things, and
That was
a good mix.
A good down-to-earth NDP who owns hotels, runs pubs, and has got tenure at some academic.
No, I don't have tenure at a university.
May I ask what you were teaching?
I taught regional planning at UBC and business at Simon Fraser, and was supposed to be teaching natural resources this fall, but we have a by-election.
Oh, you have a by-election instead, and you're going to go back in to take over the NDP party after Skelly falls on his face.
Anything but. I think Mr. Skelly's a breath of fresh air in provincial politics, and I look forward to working with him.
Well, I must admit, you always were a somewhat abrasive, if retiring politician to deal with, and you're always
Just like Mr. Webster.
good
yeah.
showbiz, let's say that. Now, what about Arthur Lee? I remember when you were a very big noise in the Liberal Party, and you were parliamentary secretary to somebody or
Solicitor
other.
General. That's
Which
right.
one?
Francis Fox.
Oh.
Oh.
Were you there at the time he was sorely embarrassed?
Yes, I was there at the time. Yes.
How old are you now, Arthur?
I'm 37.
Married?
Yes, I am.
How many children?
I have one. That's what I've been doing since I've been out of active political life. And
Having
now
one child?
Yes, and I'm also the leader of our party, of the BC Liberal Party.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
a BC Liberal Party.
That's right. And you forgot to mention we have a candidate running in the North Okanagan, and that's
No.
Frank Cole. Yes, you did. Yes.
Frank
Yeah.
Cole?
Yes, Frank Cole, and he's running for us up there. And you said there were only two. Well, there's three up there running as well. And there's
Oh,
Frank.
Frank. How do you spell his name?
C-O-L-E.
And he'll
Frank.
Get, he'll
okay.
he's old King Cole.
Well, I don't know if he's old King Cole, but he's going to give Lyle a good run for
And
his
he'll
money
get
up there.
5% of the votes up there.
No,
won't
I
he?
think you'll do much better than that.
I see. And after you were so roundly defeated by Margaret Mitchell,
Oh, I don't think I was so roundly defeated, but I was defeated, yes.
what did you do for a living then?
I'm a practicing lawyer. I practice down in the East End, and I do a lot of work, as you know, in the Asia-Pacific Rim.
I didn't know that.
Oh, okay.
And John Turner, I understand, is not even talking to you, far less sending you money.
Oh, no. He is. He's helping me an awful lot. In my,
He wasn't at your meeting the other night.
But, you know, you've got to remember, he's got his own battles to fight, and it was the first time the full national executive had met here in Vancouver to discuss, you know, what happened on September the 4th. But for the first time in my recent history, a national leader of the Liberal Party endorsed a provincial candidate, and that was me. And we did that in a public press conference on Thursday. And a lot of people didn't pick that up.
Oh, you're telling me it's a big deal if your national leader endorses a provincial
Sure,
candidate?
because all the media want to seem to be making such a big hype about the hyphenated...
Because you know as well as I do that what Liberals don't vote social credit, vote NDP.
That's right. And it's very important.
Disgraceful, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
They've got no political principles at all, these gutless Liberals, have they?
Well, no, we're going to change that. We've got the, the solution and the problem. We're going to change that around in these by-elections.
Mario Caravetta.
You said it right this time.
I always say
No,
it right.
but you said it with an E last time when you
Mario,
were on the intro.
I said Mario Caravetta.
No, you said Caravetti.
Did I say Caravetti?
You did.
Is it Caravetta?
Right.
How big is the Italian, indigenous Italian population of Vancouver East, as against the Chinese or the Indo-Canadian or the NASPs? What did you call them?
North American Anglo-Saxon Protestant is the sociological term that they now
Okay.
use.
Will the Italian vote sweep you into power?
No, all the votes are going to sweep me into power.
All
Not
I
just
can, all I see of you in my mind's eye as I close and concentrate are the roundabouts at the PNE and the gambling games.
No, I was never involved in gambling games at the PNE.
What was
That
your
wasn't
job
my-
at the PNE?
My job at the PNE, I was mostly in senior management position of the buildings and the attractions at Fairtown.
But I'm going back a long, long way. You know, I've known you. Wasserman and you and I were buddies out there back
That's
in,
right.
in the 40s and the 50s, I suspect.
Those big political meetings in the 50s.
Those big political meetings we had in the back room when we all used to have a little dram now and again.
Well, not me, you guys.
Oh, no, just Wasserman and me.
That's right.
Well, why would you step out of your accustomed role and run for such a lackluster group of social credit in Vancouver East?
Hold it. Lackluster, anything but.
Well, give it some luster.
Damn right, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to put proper representation into Vancouver East this time. I don't think they've ever been represented properly in Vancouver East in the past.
Are you saying that Alec MacDonald, who just because he tennis he's at Wimbledon every year, or Dave Barrett because he's gone for $1 here and there, didn't properly represent, or Bob Williams,
Right,
the
that's
scourge
just what
of
I'm
the
saying.
capitalists,
That's
or
just
Art
what
Lee
I'm
as an
saying.
MP.
or Art Lee.
Oh, that's federally. This is provincially we're talking about. The Liberals never listened to anyone from the West Coast before anyway. Why did they start now?
Look at the state of British Columbia just now. It's on its knees thanks to Mr.
Well,
Bennett.
No, I don't think so. I don't think it's on its knees. The revenue stopped coming in. We have to tighten the belt. I'd rather, Jack, suffer a little bit now, right now. I'm beyond the point of having my kids pay for what I might want. Now I'm concerned about my grandchildren. By the way,
Okay.
I've got pictures of them. You want to see them?
No, thank you. Caravetta is prepared to suffer if social credit returns to power. Lee, we
No,
don't
that's not the right way of saying it. We're just tightening our belt a little bit.
tighten your belt.
That's
says
right.
Caravetta.
We're not going to suffer.
Lee says, get your hand out to Ottawa for more money.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying, the issue in these by-elections is jobs. And my friend over here, you know, his party and his government is so busy, you know, running this province into the ground, running people into the ground, they don't even know that the kind of restraint package they're putting forward just isn't necessary. We need a fiscally stimulated budget at this point in time.
Okay.
You know, all you got to do is look at the headlines in the Sun, you know.
Oh.
I've seen him here. I mean, you take a look at the economy heading for hell. I mean, Jim Matkin from the Employers Council, a very important group, you know, within our society here, and he's saying that education, your government's running it into the ground. And
Okay. And Williams has the answer, nationalize the whole damn place.
That's
Come on,
right.
let's straighten
That's
this
right.
out.
That's what he did. That's what he did.
The issue is to compare Victoria with Manitoba. We've lost 64,000 jobs in BC since '81 under this administration because of belt tightening at the wrong time. Manitoba has increased activity in terms of jobs. They've increased jobs 12,000-fold. So that's the difference. It's belt tightening at the wrong time, in the wrong place, in the wrong way.
We'll get down to issues after the break. In these kind of political interviews where you put three in Webster in the one show, it's difficult to keep the thing under good control and come up with some sanity. But you get a flavour of the candidates, and people don't vote on what they hear, they vote on flavours, whether or not they like Mario's bald head, this cuddly wavy hair, but the handsome Chinese Canadian. Others,
If it's baldness, I won.
you win. Okay, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll let you, and this is highly unfair, but we'll give you a couple of minutes just to defend the record of social credit in BC is at the moment. Do you really think, like Bennett does, that we're over the hump and on the way up?
Yes, I think we are, Jack.
Now, I want you gentlemen to join in if you make any particularly stupid remarks and respond. Okay, now you carry on, Mario.
Well, Jack, it's very, very simple. If I don't know how much you make, I don't know how much anyone makes. If they spend $10 a week more than they earn, at the end of the year, they're going to be in trouble. They spend $20 a week more than they earn, they're going to be in twice as much trouble. Governments are exactly the same way. They could only spend what they receive in taxes.
Oh, but that, in a sense, that's part of the problem, Jack. We've been investing in the wrong things in British Columbia in recent years. We've invested in a dam at Revelstoke, $3 billion, and we don't need the electricity ourselves. We can't sell it to the Americans. That's a $3 billion debt with no money coming in to pay it off. It's the makings of bankruptcy, and I can tote up $10 billion worth of debts in British Columbia that are ill-founded projects. That's the problem. We've got now a debt squeeze, a debt bomb ticking away because we've funded the wrong projects in the wrong
But can't we
place.
just keep going borrowing endlessly and public works?
We can if there's a rate of return and make money on the projects, but we've undertaken projects that we're not making money on.
You see,
Well,
he's
that's-
saying that you were wrong to supply all these jobs in the Revelstoke Dam. It was short-term gain for near bankruptcy pain, right?
Something like
Well,
that.
Right.
I don't believe that. I believe that we're going to need it for the future. It's the same thing with ALRT. If we had built it years ago and we really needed it, it'd be a heck of a lot cheaper than boring it today. Price Waterhouse has come out with a statement. Northeast Coal, 26,000 jobs, is the one project that government will make money on over the long term. 26,000 jobs. We don't know what benefit Expo will be to us when it's all over in 86.
Well, that's the problem. You don't know what benefit
But
it's going to be.
we don't know
That's-
how much good benefit.
Arthur, what do you think of
Well,
it
you know,
being
for the last recent few years, the Social Credit have been running very fiscally conservative budgets. And right now we have a very high unemployment rate, and that is the reason why, the approach of the Social Credit is splash red ink all over everybody else's, books. I was down at the waterfront this morning talking to the longshoremen, and they need work. And they're not getting this kind of leadership from your government.
Why haven't they got the work?
Because you're not doing a very good job.
You know why they haven't got it?
Because you're not doing a very good job with the economy. That's your government.
The
right?
demands of the union leaders that they unload everything.
That's right.
And they can't do it. It's too expensive. The people in British Columbia and Canada cannot afford to have crews of longshoremen following the containers to unload them. It's crazy. It's political suicide.
Sure, and the BCR is subsidizing it, and they're helping them out as well.
Well, we got to all try to help them out.
Okay, now, Bob.
Helping Seattle.
Now is a chance to come in and for you to have an analytical look at Social Credit's labour policies, with particular reference to their desire to use non-union people and the stupidity of the BC Fed in other ways. What have they done to the trade union movement, and can the management now buy back the things they gave the trade unions?
Well, what I think they don't understand, I think they're clouded by their ideology on the right. Because I think that the whole wave of progress since the Second World War in North America came about through better wages and better conditions. And that has really brought the kind of good times that we've known most of the time since the Second World War. Now they're hung up on their own ideology, and they say, if you take less, then we'll all be better off. But the point is, there's as much money out there as there ever was, probably more. It's just that the distribution is all wrong. We've benefited by people having decent wages. Business benefits by people having decent wages. We won't be able to go to Expo if we don't have decent wages. So that's the problem. I think they're hung up on their own right-wing ideology.
Do you regard them as a bunch of right-wing rednecks who want to smash the unions?
I think they've brought in advisors that have the same kind of blinkers as them. And they desperately need to get back to the people and onto the doorstep and learn what's really happening out there.
Now, what about this? Here's one that really staggers me and which people don't seem to appreciate, is that as of the 1st of next year, the people of British Columbia will be taxed $200 million for the water running over the dams. And it's got no relationship to hydro or water or anything else.
That's right.
How big an effect has that had on industry in British Columbia?
A very devastating effect. We're a province, we're resource rich, but we're industry poor. But I also want to come back here and talk about some of the things Mr. Williams was talking about. When he was a member of his government, 72 through 75, and he was talking about redistribution, and he did it, through the mining legislation, and that kind of legislation resulted in the loss of about 6,000 jobs.
That's straight. I was Minister of Forests.
That's right. But you were also one of the major ministers of that particular government. You were there at the time. You had an opportunity to do about saving and creating jobs, but you didn't do anything about it.
I think we should get it straight. The mines that have gone under in the last couple of years under Social Credit. 19 mines have folded in British Columbia under this administration. That didn't happen during the
But you were there. You were there when there was a brief presented to the government of British Columbia.
And I was there last week before Mr. Curtis, holding his hearings just now in the last week, and the mining people were there, battered and bruised, saying we've never been in such tough shape.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's under this administration.
That's under this and under the old administration as well.
But your record under the old administration wasn't by any means crystal clean. You terrified the mining industry. You know that.
Well, look, Jack, I mean, here's the results, and this was done by the brief. And then right at the peak, and this is the mining industry, when the NDP were in power, it just went straight down. This is claims in the province of British Columbia. Anyway, and this is exploration. They went straight down as well.
You've made the point. Northeast Coal won't go bankrupt, though, will it, Mario? Hey?
I missed that, Jack.
Northeast Coal won't go bankrupt.
Hell no.
Northeast Coal, that's up, in the northern part of the country.
Not if we keep throwing in $500 million a year as we did in the last year to pay for the railway.
Pricewaterhouse says we're going to make money out of it. Now, who's a better authority on financing than Pricewaterhouse?
Oh, probably 10,000 people if you're talking about accountants. Pricewaterhouse. What about a dozen? Have you ever dealt with accountants yourself? Have they ever made any sense to you? Never in all my life. They're not my accountants, just by the way. Now, let's get on to something else. What this province needs is good union-free development zones where these damned unions aren't allowed in to inhibit the activities of our good entrepreneurs. Is that not correct?
You sure you're not a candidate?
Answer the question.
Answer the question. I think we should have a right to work. I think if a person does not want to belong to a union and wants to work for a non-union firm, that should be his choice. 96% of the government contracts, BC government contracts are led to union firms.
Good enough. Right to work, although he says it doesn't apply. You, of course, brought in a law, you being the NDP, that you could not bid on government contracts unless you were a union firm.
Yes, that's true.
And you would bring it back tomorrow.
That's up to the caucus, but certainly we're in favor of decent wages. The economy is better off when people
Wait a
have
second.
decent
Wait a second. He interrupted me the first time.
Fair enough.
Non-union does not necessarily mean it's bad wages. They're good wages, some of them. I know non-union people in the same industries making more money than union people.
But it's abundantly clear that what's happening at Expo is that the gravy goes to Mr. Kirchhoff and the like, and the people
No,
take
it
lower
is not
wages.
the gravy. It was
Come
an
on.
open bid. Their bid, the
No.
low one got it. It's
Sure,
there was no gravy on.
because they were paying less in wages.
Well,
and that goes just to the
I'll
contract.
straighten you all out on that after the break. Oh, well, forget my views on what should have been done. He said what they should have done was if Bennett had been half awake at the time, he would have imposed the federal minimum wages
That's
for
right.
non-union contracts. The whole of the Expo thing would have been settled in April and we wouldn't have had this stupid mess.
And then we wouldn't have had the black eye in the international community,
Right.
which this government has given us.
Well,
Right.
black eye. There's no black eye at all. It just shows how determined union leaders are. They're more concerned about their own personal niche than they are about their membership.
Oh,
No,
come on.
Mr. Pattison and Mr. Gauthier worked out a rapprochement 3 different times, and every time the rug was pulled under from Mr. Pattison.
yeah.
By the
That's right.
board. By the board.
And
come
by
on.
the
No,
Primo.
no, by the
That's
government.
Primo.
That's
Well,
the government.
well, you can assume. That's what you're assuming by it was done by the premier.
Okay, raise another issue.
Well, I'd
why
like
do
to
you-
talk about education in our area, and which is very, very important. And I think this government, with their cutbacks, and this is why, we proposed, right now, we believe that we can afford $500 million. We can spend that kind of money to get BC back on the road to recovery. And in that package, we're saying $40 million additional in post-secondary education. When you've got people like Jim Matkin from the Employers Council inciting it, you've got presidents of universities, you've got presidents of our technical colleges and our superintendents of schools saying that your government is going to make education so expensive that the only people are going to be able to use is the rich. And that is very important to the people in Vancouver East.
In other words, their policies are making it available only to the rich.
It's a real problem. 1,400 teachers have been laid off in the Vancouver school district, and it's now down to the bones. We've got a special problem in the city in terms of English as a second language. Half of all the kids, in fact, have English as their second language, not their mother language. So that's a special problem in Vancouver. There should be additional funding in Vancouver. We shouldn't be squeezing. And what they've been talking about is another cutback like the last one, another 1,400 teachers. That's bad for the kids, that's bad for the future, and it's bad for the economy right now. It just doesn't make sense.
But
It's
you
bad
believe the
management.
universities and the schools are full of feather-bedded unionized layabouts anyway, don't you? Don't
Well, when I see a bunch of professors and the tenures they have and the sabbaticals they take and everything else,
Tax-free sabbaticals, don't forget that.
when you see all that, that's what needs cleaning up. It needs cleaning up. Sure, we're cutting back on everything. We're tightening our belt. But really, how much has the enrollment gone down in the schools?
Quite a bit. And
Quite
the
a bit.
reason why,
So
because
when
the students
it's
couldn't
the-
afford to go.
It's the same thing with Bob Williams and his bar. When the business stops, he's going to lay people off. He has to. There's no money there to pay them. And this is what I'm saying. We have no money to pay them.
All right,
we
let me-
have to cut back.
let me try
and
it.
education has not
Actually, I
suffered to the
didn't.
extent as these gentlemen
Come on.
say.
During the bus strike, I did not lay them off, as a matter of fact. I was a pretty decent
That bus
employer.
strike was a butt job too, wasn't it?
But
Yeah, and the NDP voted not to go back to work, not to legislate them back to work.
And the government didn't put him back to
They
work.
most
And
certainly
who
did.
suffered? Who suffered?
suffered?
And why did it take so long? Why did it take so
and who
long?
was management?
Well-
management were the government appointees. It could have
That's
been
right.
stopped
but
before
it takes
it
two
started.
sides, doesn't it?
Yeah, but we
Takes
ended
two
up
sides.
ended up taking a
You know?
stick to the downtown economy, and we could have avoided
What-
it. That was what was wrong.
What does
Yeah.
a bus driver make in a year?
$27,000 a year, best
You're
paid in
low.
North America.
You're low.
Never mind.
You guys were arguing about nickels and dimes and issues with the bus drivers. You're spending $1 billion on rapid transit, and you're fighting over the bus
Well,
system and wrecking the local economy.
Question, are you in favor of the sale of wine and beer in corner stores?
No.
Are you in favor of the sale of
No.
wine and beer in corner stores? Are you in favor of the sale of wine and beer in corner stores?
Probably not.
Do you think Friedman should be junked at the end of his contract, the ombudsman?
I think he's shown himself to be the conscience of the province in countless ways, and the legislature in Victoria should certainly reappoint him.
Do you feel the same?
He should be reappointed, and his role should be increased, and his budget should be increased, because he's about the only person right now. The NDP aren't keeping the government honest, and he's about the only person who's keeping this political party and that government honest.
Would you fire Friedman because he's a thorn in the side of the Social Credit government and annoys them intensely, starting with Shoal Bay, for instance, and whatever became of the Shoal Bay inquiry? Do you think he should be fired?
No, I don't think he should. I think he should.
Carl, you have a friend. Mario Caravetta is your friend. Mario will lobby for you in a nice way.
If he wants to get in some of the areas that he got in, his role should be redefined.
That's good. Calls now to Messrs. Williams, Lee, and Caravetta.
Right.
After the break. One day I'm going to go ahead, please.
Yeah, good morning. How are you doing this morning?
Good.
That's good. I've got a couple of questions here. One of them is, like, I hear a lot of talk about this Northeast coal and 26,000 jobs or something like that.
Oh, that's wrong. He didn't know he was wrong, but there aren't 26,000 jobs. There are 5,000 jobs.
There's 13 direct jobs and 13,000 spin-off jobs.
All right. How many jobs were lost in the Southeast coal area because of the Northeast coal?
Well, you're talking about the area where I first saw the light of day, and sure, they've suffered a bit. They've suffered in the past. But it's the Northeast coal has opened up the whole development of the North.
And they're entitled to suffer under social credit. You said that to begin with.
No. Hold it. I did not say. You says they're entitled to suffer.
You said
I says we've got to cut back a bit.
That's
you
right.
said suffer.
That's right.
There's different. Cutting back and all this.
You don't have to suffer. You're a fat cat. I'm a fat cat. We don't have to suffer.
I am not a fat cat, Jack.
Well, put on some weight.
No, I've lost weight.
I think the irony is that the cost of producing coal in the Southeast is $20 a ton less than producing it in the Northeast. And it made no sense at all. The railway was in, the towns were built, the towns that Mario is from were all part of that region. They could have benefited from
We
expansion
also ended up paying for it twice.
That's right.
When Brick bought Kaiser.
And the Japanese are the ones that benefit. They have us
They're
competing
benefiting.
against ourselves.
Here's a man with a poem for you. Say your poem.
Yes, let's see, Russell, the colored fellow, and he said if they keep on taxing us and cutting back and everything else, sooner take-home pay won't even take us home.
Oh, thank you very much. That's not as good as I thought it was. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Jack?
Yes.
I'd like to address the candidates this morning about ALRT and about the fact that the taxes are going to increase and we're really going to be hit with a bill in '86. I'd like to know why the press and politicians haven't addressed this, because I think we're going to be hit with a real shock by '86.
Okay, we'll go first to Williams, then to Lee, and then to Caravetta.
It's a good point. The numbers have never come out in the local press. I think it's a very good point. The actual cost per ride is going to be $16 per ride. That's going to require a massive subsidy or write-down. $16 a ride, all of us could ride in taxis for that money. It doesn't make any sense. And instead, we spent all summer arguing over nickels and dimes with the bus drivers.
Lee?
Same point. I think when the government bought it in, they should have spent much, much more time. It's like all of their mega projects. A lot of them, they don't sort of sit down, rationalize it through, discuss it with the public. And there were a lot of people hurt in the East End because of the building of the system itself. And that's the kind of government they have. They're very insensitive. They don't care about the people in the East End.
Economic cost of $16 a ride for the LRT.
That's what they've claimed. I haven't seen.
You don't
figures
believe
yet.
that?
No,
That's nonsense.
No, I don't believe
That's a
it. All
professor
I
at the
would
University
say-
of Washington.
Who's that?
Professor Edgar Horwood at the University of Washington in Transportation.
All I could say, if we had this attitude, we'd still be in the horse and buggy. When Ghilardi put the Dees Island Tunnel through, and all the money that was the complaining, the knocking, continual knocking from NDP, the few Liberals that were in Victoria at that time, continual knocking, we wouldn't be able to get to Surrey today.
As a matter of fact, I want to give you a quote from Ghilardi. Two quotes from Ghilardi you must always use. One is that a particular project is a triumph of the vision of imagination over engineering. And the other one is that if he was telling a lie, it was only because he was sincerely convinced he was telling the truth. You mustn't forget these two dogmas of social credit.
That's right, but I still say LART is probably one of the best investments made. Surrey, I don't think these gentlemen have been knocking on the same doors I have. I have not heard, and I have done about 2,500 doors, right along the LRT line, it was across as Nanaimo, And I have not heard anyone complain about ALRT.
I thought you were going to be pelted with pasta on Commercial Drive.
No, pelted with pasta. That's too good to eat. You don't throw it.
Go ahead, please.
Well, Tumber Ridge has been partially answered. You don't, they don't go through and tell everything about it, and the LRT. Well, I think it's just a big schmozzle. We had streetcars before, and damn it, I think they would have done a better job than anything they're building today.
Yeah.
That's right.
Back to the horse and buggy.
How many
Back
of
to the
the-
horse and buggy.
your-
Buses or horse and buggy?
No, San Diego
Gotta
built
get 'em off the road.
San Diego built a system to Tijuana, almost the same length as our ALRT system, for about $15 million using existing track and existing technology.
We had
That's
all
way
the
to do it.
tracks and everything.
Exactly. We're putting great concrete pylons where there are already railway tracks we could have used.
Yeah, when I used to live at just off Gilly Avenue, I used to be able to go up to Fraser Arms, do my gambling in the morning on the pin. What was that machine with? The numbers
Pinball.
game.
Pinball?
Numbers game.
Oh.
And with tiny machines underneath the counter. 15 minutes to downtown, sleeping through the snow. It was great, and new people took it away.
On the Central
Disgraceful.
Park line.
Central
Well,
Park line.
Crossings, how many streets did it cross that it stopped traffic from flowing? It's bad enough having freight cars and railway cars coming through.
But you don't spend $1 billion for that
Well,
problem.
it'll be money well spent, and it'll be things for the future for everyone to use.
It's gonna
People
be
in Surrey are crying for it. People in Maple Ridge
It's going to
are
be a
crying
debt load
for it.
on every house in the Lower Mainland.
Well, that's
Okay,
what
go ahead, please.
Yes, I'd like to, first of all, give Mr. Lee a pat on the back. And if we had any more politicians around, like Mr. Caravetta walking 2,500 door-to-door people, and he's such a fat cat, I haven't seen him standing in a food bank lineup. I'm just glad that my parents in London, Ontario are watching this program, because it'll sure stop them from moving out here and seeing what a hell of a job the social credit party is doing.
You found
to
an
us.
enemy.
found a few of them, sure. Sure, it's happened. It's happened to everybody. A lot of people.
Yeah,
have
you
suffered.
shouldn't make that a personal remark. It's okay for me to have a joke with him, but it's rude if you do it. But no, seriously. The point I make, though, is that it just breaks your heart to see food banks in downtown British Columbia.
We've got them. We've got them at Christchurch Cathedral. I was down visiting that one. We've got them at the Native Friendship Center. And I'm very concerned by the attitude of this government. And they say, don't feel guilty about the poor. You know, and there's a lot of people out there, and I think it's time we started treating some British Columbians like human beings, and that's the insensitivity. And his government as well, when they were in power in 72 through 75, they didn't do a lot in terms of trying to improve the social welfare system.
Oh, yes,
I
they
don't
did.
buy that one at
They
all.
started Mincome. You may remember all
Yes,
the
we
little
did.
fiddles in Mincome to begin with. Remember?
Yes, and we gave some local control over some
everybody was
policy,
flying
too.
in their grannies from all over the world to go straight on to Mincome, despite warnings your government received on that point.
We may have erred in terms of helping the poor. You certainly can't say that today when it's really needed.
No. Well, I don't know. 15,000 a year? That wasn't quite
Come
right
on
for
now.
No,
Gracie
Come
to
on
use
now.
that.
That's not fair.
That
Those are
wasn't a fair
exaggerated
figure of
figures.
Gracie to use, was it?
I didn't see it. I'll be truthful.
What do you mean you didn't see it?
No, I didn't see it. I was out knocking the doors. I wasn't reading
You
newspapers.
should have
or listening
chapter
to
invest in this one.
Well, I should. Yes, you're right. But if she made the statement, I would have to believe Grace was probably quoted out of context.
No,
or-
you'd believe anything Grace said.
No, I would not.
I bet you would. More calls after the break. In case you've forgotten who these people are, this is Bob Williams, socialist of the right wing.
Of the NDP.
Arthur Lee, liberal, and you can't define liberal. Opportunist.
No, middle of the road. Pragmatic, sound, reasonable
And a
approaches.
good right-to worker who doesn't want anyone to be forced to join unions, Mario Caravetta.
Right.
Yeah, at least you're straight up about that.
Damn right.
If I don't want to join a union, I'm perfectly entitled to take all the benefits and not even pay the
No,
dues.
no, I'm not saying that. You're saying it.
I'm putting it to you.
No, I just think if a person does not want to belong to a union for whatever reason, a longshoreman stopped me and says, Mario, if you get elected and when you get elected, please stop the unions of forcing me to pay $5 to a political party to get them elected, a party I don't believe in.
What party would that be?
Not ours.
Go ahead, please.
Morning, gentlemen. I wanted to ask the three candidates what their position was on the city of Vancouver a year ago, having asked the provincial government to declare British Columbia a nuclear weapon-free zone, and also what sort of a priority they thought that should be in the provincial government.
Briefly, gentlemen, although you go as long as you like. We'll start with Arthur Lee.
Although it's mainly a federal issue, I think that every British Columbia should say something about it, and I believe that British Columbia should be a nuclear-free zone because, here we're talking about jobs, we're talking about economy, but, the waste that we use.
Cruise missiles?
Sure, yes.
Stop the testing?
Stop the testing.
Oh, you're going against Liberal policy?
Yes, I'm going against Liberal policy.
You're doing it like a Campagnolo?
Yes.
Stabbing John Turner in the back?
No.
Okay. Bob Williams?
Absolutely, I agree we should be a nuclear-free zone. I think Council has shown some leadership. We've got a chance to vote in this civic election on the issue, and that makes sense to me. The numbers that march in peace marches in British Columbia outdistance everything in Canada. Clearly the public's with us.
No.
We should have a nuclear-free world.
Nuclear-free zone for BC.
Never mind.
Are you all for local votes on it?
As long as they've got it, we should have it. Jack, I'm very convinced, just 1 second, I'm very convinced. I was hustling papers in 1939 when war was declared. And I personally feel if we were as prepared in 1939 as we are today, there would never have been World War II.
But that's not the question.
That is the question. We cannot be nuclear free
Do you think
and rely on the rest of Canada or the United States of America to defend us, which we are doing now.
I don't want a discussion of world policy.
Policy, as long as there's a...
Do you think that Vancouver City Council were stupid in voting for a nuclear-free zone?
Yes.
Good. I got
You want a nuclear-free world,
That's
but you
right.
won't vote for it in Vancouver.
I don't want to
How
be
do you figure that out?
I don't want to be the starter of it. I
wouldn't want to start peace anywhere. You wouldn't want to start peace anywhere.
Let them start.
Before you came in this morning, I wouldn't have given you a chance of a powder to blow you into office. One never knows now, does one? Good stuff. This is really noisy. Go ahead from Prince George.
Morning, Jack and gentlemen. 2 points to your social credit guest there, Jack. Ask him why, I'm a 29-year-old man and a good equipment operator, and 6 months ago I couldn't get a job at Tumble Ridge, but yet people from back east can get work. And, is he going to blame the unions on this big increase BC Tel just had the other day there, and I'll hang up and listen.
Good. Yeah, he's right, the guys from Prince George couldn't get jobs at Tumble Ridge, and BCTL want a 15% increase, which you'd support?
No.
You don't know about the Tumble Ridge, Kip?
Well, the Tumble Ridge, we hear a lot of this. I have never had any concrete proof.
It's only complaints of workers.
No, Jack, remember one thing. I was dismissed from the P&E by a SOCRED appointed board.
I didn't know you were dismissed.
Yes, 4 years ago, or thereabouts, by a SOCRED appointed board.
In other words, you don't owe them nothing.
That's right. But still, I have to feel what Mr. Bennett is doing and the Social Credit Party is doing, the government is doing in BC, is going to put us on the road to recovery, a stable road to recovery.
Good. Wasn't Williams the guy who tried to pack the PNE board?
He didn't try, he did it.
He ruined the board, didn't he?
Most certainly.
Yeah.
He says in his brochure here, somewhere there that, there it is right there.
Replacing social credit upon the PNE board with NDPS, of course.
But, no, wait a sec. There was no SOCRED appointees at the time.
Come
on. Rewrote the act. The P, well, if you're both ill-informed or you're ignorant, one or the other.
It was basically Terminal City Club East.
But it was run right. You said you put the minor hockey kids back there, back on. We had a minor hockey association, Bob, in 1958-59.
Oh, leave that for later. Go ahead, please.
Yes, this is directed towards Mr. Caravetta. It concerns a friend of mine. He's employed by Mr. Caravetta, and it's by Caravetta Catering.
I'm not taking...
No, don't take that call.
Eh?
I'll take it.
You'll take it, will you?
Well, let him finish.
Because I don't believe in embarrassing candidates with material questions which may be planted about which I don't know the answers. Now, there's no... Are you going to...
No, this is just concerning the wage that my friend gets.
Now, 1 sec. I do not own Caravetta Classic Catering. I have nothing to do with it. I help him once in a while. My son owns it.
Okay, I'm not taking the call. I don't care, because I don't know the answer, and it's not the intention to set people up.
Right.
I think you'd agree with the gentleman.
I agree. Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
I would have a question for Mr. Caravetta. Does he not realize
You're the belle of the ball.
the majority of the tradesmen working for non-union firms are ex-union tradesmen, union trained, and would belong to a union if they had a choice, but they're out of work and they have to eat, so that is the only alternative.
Yeah, I think that's a point you could better put to Mr. Williams and Mr. Lee. It is a fact that union men are forced to go non-union when they're...
Well, that may well be the case, but it's the whole business of pushing down wages in British Columbia, and it doesn't really make sense.
But let's be honest, Bob, you are a businessman, seriously. Yes. You know perfectly well, I hear of another bigger operation that's going to lay off 800 people because the union involved will not give an inch, so they're going to move it to California.
There's got to be some give and take, but at the same time, I think you have to understand that decent wages pushes management into being more productive. You know, it's a means of improving productivity if you really think about it. That is what has happened in the post-war years on this continent.
But if you're a small guy trying to make a living and make a bid, and if you're a small non-union contract,
but under this system,
you've got to cut the wages a bit.
Sure, but I'm busy paying union wages, and I'm competing against people that don't pay union wages. It means I have to do a better job as a manager, and there's nothing wrong with that.
And you can do a better job if the Building Trades Council have feather-bedded you to death.
Well, that's something else. That's worth looking at.
I mean, that's what you believe, along with other people.
No, I don't believe in feather-bedding.
You don't believe in restrictive trade practices?
No, in a broad sense.
No, I think you would go along with that.
No, I think that this it clearly indicates the difference between this gentleman on the right and this gentleman on the left of me. They just happen to be that way, and here I am in the middle. Because the Liberal Party would say, you know, these people, every time they trot out something, you know, they always put the boots to the unions, and these people come out and say, I would agree with Mr. Williams, but we have to take a look at wages, we have to take a look at property taxes, we have to take a look at all of the things why this BC economy is in such sad shape. We have got to get people back to work here. And the Liberal Party is the only one that can, you know, it's the only one that can come clean. It's the only one that can say, all right, we don't owe anything to big business, we don't owe anything to big labor.
What do you mean you don't owe anything to big business?
I don't.
You mean the provincial Liberal
The provincial Liberal Party, Jack.
It doesn't, because it's
right.
That may be a complaint, I don't know.
Yeah, it's got no clout, has not been empowered, but the Liberal Party owes everything to big business.
No, I am the provincial Liberal Party. You're talking about something else.
Talking about John Turner's party.
No, you said it.
Is that a different party?
Pardon?
Is the National Liberal Party a different party from yours?
Same philosophy, different people.
Different party?
Yes.
No connection in this campaign?
Oh, no, I didn't say that.
I mean,
I'm saying to you that here in the province of British Columbia, that it's very important that people get back to work, and the Liberal Party is looking for sound, reasonable, pragmatic approaches. And here we're hearing this argument back and forth.
Well,
and that's what really counts.
I don't think it's an argument back and forth. It's just without the mega projects that have put thousands of people to work, where will the labor situation be
beyond
today?
mega projects? Where do you go?
They will develop. There'll be spin-offs of them. There'll be from Expo, from LRT. There'll be permanent, lasting jobs.
When you've heard that Expo 86 is probably going to lose money in LRT, I'm not saying we shouldn't go ahead with it.
You said probably could lose money. It'll break even.
What will be the long-term jobs that come out of ALRT and Expo? What will they be?
Employment running them.
Knocking down
everything.
the buildings we put up at Expo. That's going to be the next phase.
There'll be a proper development in BC Place after Expo. The spin-off on the trade from the Pacific Rim, the amount of countries that have signed up.
Do you think seeing a pretty amusement park will affect foreign trade people?
We will be able to get the leaders of these nations here.
They're going to change the name. They're going to call it Falls Creek PNE.
It's looking at the world through rose-colored glasses. It's not realistic.
Sure
We're talking about hard-nosed businessmen. And they don't respond to a nice amusement park.
No, but at least we can get them here and they can see what we have. They can see our natural resources. They can see what we can produce, and the trade will be enormous.
For 32 cents, we can send them a brochure.
The more important thing, it seems to me, if you want to get international business people here, is for British Columbia to set up a house in the Asia-Pacific Rim. That's the next major area.
Now,
This government hasn't done it.
Don't mention houses, and I'll ask a question about body houses.
No, we're not talking about houses. We're talking about trade commission offices.
I thought Sven was here for a moment with these body houses.
No, we're not.
Fair enough, gentlemen. Another question. What do you make of a guy like Bill Ritchie? Johnny come lately to provincial government, he got some minor cabinet post, sits here and says, no wards for the city of Vancouver, no ward voting. What do you make of that arrogance?
It's part of the centralized arrogance that we've had under this administration for too long. We've had 2 votes in Vancouver of all the people in the city, and the majority has voted for a ward system. Now, I think the irony is that a ward system, in fact, would assure that there would be a balance within the city. And that, in fact, might save the NPA's bacon in the long haul. If they're not smart enough to understand that if they took a balanced view, we'd all be better off.
Mario Caravetta, you'll do as I tell you, or I'll tear up your membership in the Social Credit Party. What do you think of ward system?
I believe we should have a ward system, but I go one step. Let's talk about provincial. All these double-seat ridings.
Yes, I agree.
And continue on, look at what this government's doing. They're going to create a double-seat riding, I believe, in the Premier's riding. You know, that's very anti-democratic. And
Is he got a son old enough to run?
I don't know. I don't know.
Let's talk about centralization, Bob. When you were minister, you brought in the Forest Product Stabilization Act that ultimately would have given Bob Williams, Minister of Forestry, ultimate control of the forest.
You
brought up, just hear me out.
Sure.
The Land Commission Act.
Yes.
That could override any community, municipality, city or town, what they'd want to do with their lands. You had the power, or you were giving yourself the power to override them. That's community use.
Sure.
Bob, you claim this, your project up in the 2600 block Hemlock. Real community spirited man.
Sure.
Real community.
That's right.
6 suites, $50,000 profit for the project.
Not so
Six.
bad.
Well, that's the published figures. 77,000 to 120.
What's he talking about?
He knows what I'm talking
Well,
about.
then tell me what you're talking about.
He's talking about his concern for the community.
And he built some suites.
No, he bought 6 suites, redeveloped them, give the 6 tenants 1 month to either purchase or move out.
Did you do that?
No, that's not so. We're talking about 11 years ago.
11 years ago.
But still,
It's just not so.
But
let's
that's the
deal
past
with,
record of the man.
Let's deal with the forest sector.
Yeah.
At the time that we brought in that legislation, it was intended to help the smaller sawmillers, and that's what happened. They didn't go bankrupt like they've been going now. Look at Souk Forest Products over there in Victoria, and others going bankrupt now. We intervened to see that the pulp mills paid a decent price for chips because there was monopoly buyers. That saved the bacon of all the medium-scale sawmills in British Columbia when they were going under elsewhere.
The conversation ceases.
Okay.
Because, as I was saying, people get impressions. They have an impression from this program this morning. Oh, for or against ward systems, yes or no, for Vancouver?
I don't think they've ever worked. There's too much patronization.
Are you against?
You're damn right.
Okay, that's fine. My thanks to Bob Williams. The election is November the 8th. My thanks to Art Lee. The election is November the 8th. He is a liberal, capital L liberal, and Turner's coming out to speak for you.
Yes, he's going to help.
Do you hereby solemnly promise and declare that Mr. Turner will campaign for you on doorsteps from Vancouver East?
He's going to come out and he's going to work out his agenda and try and come out and give us a hand.
And your name again?
Jack Webster.
Mario Caravetta. Don't you dare. I'll sue you if you say I'm running for social credit. Mario Caravetta, running for social credit. Thank you, gentlemen. You've been bright, spirited, and, to say the least, amusing. November the 8th, the election. I'll be back with a one-man band. We must try and get the social creditor on the phone, eh? And the Liberal from Okanagan North, after the break. I made some jokes at the beginning of the program about being one break short of a load. And I really am sorry that the social credit candidate in Okanagan North, Harold Thorlaxon, couldn't come down this morning. And I'm not complaining, but we try to give you some representation, especially up country, about what's happening up there. We're going to try and get Mr. Thorlaxon on the phone. Any luck? I'm going to get Frank Colwell Liberal on the phone. And in the studio, I've got Lyle MacWilliam, who's sitting here with a program more or less all to himself, unless I can be really obnoxious to you. And I shall try, Lyle. What do you teach in high school?
I teach chemistry and biology, Jack.
How long have you been a teacher?
I've been teaching in the Vernon area for about 10 years now. Previous to that, I was involved in health science research at Simon Fraser University.
What made you a socialist? What turned you into
Well,
Look at that $500 suit you've got on this morning.
I'll have you know, Jack, that this suit isn't rented. I actually had to take out a second mortgage to go and purchase it.
You're good. Very smart-looking suit, too. But you've been one of the young fat cats who's seen nothing but affluence after a good university career and a nice, easy job in the teaching profession, right? How much money do you make?
How much money do I make, Jack? Well, I make... I'm of course have a master's degree, so I'm at the top of the wage scale, I guess, as far as teaching.
And how much is that?
About $38,000 a year.
$38,000. That's an adequate living wage for yourself and your wife. And how many kids?
We have 4.
You need the $38,000
yes, I
a
do.
year. Right, good.
My wife she has a full-time job looking after the kids at home.
Ah, good. That's nice to hear, isn't it? Eh? Your kids don't go to daycare.
No, she takes full.
God bless you. We found a family that looks after their own kids. That's wonderful. Even though you are a socialist and dedicated to daycare for everybody in the whole bleeding world.
Well, I certainly agree with the concept of daycare, but we found that it was best for my wife to stay at home with the kids and bring them up that way.
Right now, give me the facts in Okanagan North. Unfortunately, the city member, Dan Campbell, died. When was it?
Don Campbell.
Don Campbell died
in
last
June. Yes, that's correct.
June. And by how much did he win the riding in the last election?
The post-election results showed that he had a majority of about 3,200 votes.
3,200 votes. What did the NDP have?
Well, that was me, of course. I ran in that election against Don, and I think our total vote was about 10,300. I think he had about 13,005, something like that.
So it's a pretty tight race.
Yes, we actually brought the popular vote up 5%. We sat at 38% before the election, and we brought it up 5%, despite the fact, I might add, that the provincial tide swung against us.
What about the Liberals? What kind of vote did they have? Can they make a difference
I
in
don't
this
think
election?
they don't have a significant impact, Jack. I think the Liberal candidate at that time polled about 600 votes, if I'm correct.
Oh, a mere bagatelle, you might say.
That's correct.
So they make no difference.
Well, I think there's certainly an attempt by them to make representation up there, but I think the people in the area realize that, especially this time around, that a vote for the Liberal candidate is basically a vote for social credit, and that they have to look at a viable alternative.
Have you and Thorlaxon and Cole had any little debates up in Vernon?
Unfortunately, no. I challenged the social credit candidate at the beginning of the election to come out on the floor. Let's go at it, open forum, shoot from the hip. My feeling is that in a participatory democracy that you have to be able to take the heat. If you can't take the heat, you better get out of the kitchen. So far, we have not had that opportunity. Mr. Thorlaxon has not agreed to come to the college debate that they attempted to set up. He did not agree to come and talk to the students at the college. He did not show up at a meeting discussing educational problems in the Arrow Lakes area, which is part of our district. There have been other attempts to set up debates. He wants questions submitted beforehand in written form. My feeling is that to get the issues to the people, and I believe that...
he's dodging.
I think he's dodging, that's correct.
Won't face up to you.
Well, where is he?
Hasn't got the guts.
Where is he?
They tell me he's very big on the sewage issue because it was his predecessor who ordered some sewage dumped, and he's coming in to clean up the sewage mess. Is that right?
His position and my position on the sewage disposal parallel one another, but he's making the statements of being a fighter on the issues. My feeling is that if he is such a fighter and if he's going to have such strong representation for Okanagan North, where is he? His position on the issue is to get the sewage out of the lake. I had taken that position in the last election campaign. I had felt that putting sewage back into Okanagan Lake is going to increase the problems environmentally for the area. If we lose those lakes, Jack, because of excess nutrients in the water, if we lose those lakes because of milfoil growth, which is exacerbated by the nutrients, we're going to lose a vital part of our economy. We're going to lose that tourist industry.
Well, now, did social credit previously deliberately put additional sewage dumped into Okanagan Lake?
Let me give you a brief history on the sewage problem, Jack. In the early 70s, under the New Democratic Party administration, we supplied seed money to develop a system of land disposal. We now spray the effluent after it's been treated on the land surrounding Vernon. It's called the commonage area. And the NDP administration supplied the seed money to get that program running. And it's been very successful. It's been a model program for many communities in North America, and it's worked very well. The problem is now that we have exceeded the capacity of the land without expanding into a larger land base.
How big an area do you spray?
We presently spray on about 1,200 hectares, about 3,200 acres.
Is this as a nutrient?
Yeah.
Or is it merely for disposal?
We're putting the sewage to work for us, growing grassland crops. That's
but you've
correct.
now reached the limit of the area which can be
under the present area. Now there is more land available, and it can be accessed. My position is that we should be expanding that spray irrigation program, making sure, of course, that we keep away from residential areas where there's any problem of spray drift. But we should be expanding it, keeping it out of the lake, putting the sewage to work for us, A good alternative is to spray it on forest crops. We would have a viable, I think a few years down the road, a viable sustained yield harvest, and we would actually be getting an economic benefit out of that sewage. If we dump it in the lake, we're going to have more problems.
There was a story somewhere that some of the stuff was released into Okanagan Lake by the municipality.
Well, what's happened is, because we've reached the position of crisis management at this time, the reservoir fills up quicker than we can unload it. The city had to apply for emergency permit to dump into the lake.
And did.
And did. Now, it's my understanding, and I want to make this perfectly clear, it's my understanding at this point of time that the city, because of request from the Ministry of the Environment and the Fisheries Ministry, has again applied for emergency dumping of the sewage from the lake. That request, which went in writing, has been squashed by the Minister of the Environment, Tony Brummett. The permission has been denied until after the by-election.
Oh, is the holding place filled up again?
I think they're playing politics with a very serious environmental
and
issue.
You're saying that Brummett and this guy Thorlickson, although Thorlickson must be given credit as one of the guys who first used this nutrient on land. Is that not correct?
He was involved in spraying the nutrient on his land, that's correct.
You're saying that they've got an application now to dump more stuff into the lake, and that Brummett is holding back until after they win the election, when he will then order it dumped.
They realize that this is an extremely serious issue. This is a major issue, local issue, in the campaign up there.
But to quote Thorlickson, if the reservoir is full and you haven't expanded the program, you've got no option but to dump it in the lake.
Under an emergency situation, I agree. The thing is, why are they playing politics with this issue? The reason that the fisheries and the water management want the dumping done now is to minimize the environmental impact. If the dumping is done in February, which it will have to be because that is the estimated time that they reach a crisis when the reservoir overflows, they will have to draw down the level of Kalamalka Lake. That will cause a large-scale fish kill for the kokanee spawn. The Ministry of the Environment and Fisheries Ministry, to my understanding, is saying, look, if you have to do it, it has to be done now. Why are they playing politics with this issue?
In other words, there's no great argument of what must be done in the meantime, but you allege that they're playing politics until after the election.
Absolutely.
And not telling people the whole truth.
Absolutely.
Good point, Lyle MacWilliam. You may or may not be right. I'm going to be taking calls from Okanagan North, see if I can get some on any line collect. I'm going to be speaking to the Liberal candidate, and I'm going to be speaking to Brian Patty, Thorlickson's campaign manager and local such and such, after the break. Well, we've got some telephone calls I've got to make here. The first one is to Mr. Is that you, Mr. Thorlickson?
No, I'm sorry, Jack. It's Brian Patty, Harold's campaign manager here in Okanagan North.
Well, I'm awfully, I'm sorry we couldn't get him down. I was really trying my best to give fair and equal representation.
Well, I'm glad that you were, Jack. We, as I mentioned to the fellow I had on the phone before, Harold is out meeting the people in Okanagan North right now, knocking on doors.
Well, I hope he's knocking on some doors, and if he's knocking on a door with a television set on Webster, tell the housewives to nag him for not going on Webster, will you?
Well, Jack, you've probably done that over the TV right now.
Oh, that's fine.
Our concern, Jack, is meeting the voters of Okanagan North and making them just realize how important it is that they be involved in this by-election.
How old is Mr. Thorlickson?
Harold is 50 years old. He's been, his family moved to this area at the turn of the century. Generally speaking, he was born and raised here, was a rancher, farmer, businessman in the Vernon area, was an alderman for 2 terms back in the mid-60s, and was instrumental at that time in building the Vernon Civic Complex and Vernon Recreation Center, which we around Vernon here are also proud of.
What does he say to Williams' charge that they're playing politics on the sewage, and as soon as the election's over, then they'll dump into the lake?
Okay, Harold's position has always been, Jack. In fact, it was reported both by BCTV and CBC TV, as well as the local newspapers, that one of the reasons he won the nomination for the Social Credit Party is that he was opposed to dumping of sewage into the lake now, in the future, at any time.
And otherwise, he's a good, solid social creditor who thinks Billy Bennett is wonderful.
Jack, Harold Thorlickson is the kind of guy who is very, very concerned about the North Okanagan area. He's very concerned about the fact that sometimes people in the Okanagan North area don't feel that they're getting just the fair shake that they should get.
Okay, Mr. Campaign Manager, Mr. Patty. Mr. Patty, thanks for calling. It was good of you.
Jack, before you go off, I would like to set one thing straight with regard to Lyle MacWilliam's point that Harold is not prepared to meet on these debates. Number one, the college debate, the reason he's not meeting that one is he was the first to accept a public debate that evening where there would be far more coverage with the people. Now, with regard to the meeting in Arrow Lakes, Harold was over there meeting with the members of the Arrow Lakes area and a meeting on Saturday afternoon with the Edgewood people and on Saturday evening with the Folkier and Burton people, and he came out adamantly opposed to the closure of any schools in that area and was taking that issue up immediately with Jack Heinrich and would continue to do so after the election.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Are they closing many schools?
There's a possible closure of 3 schools in the Arrow Lakes area. Remember now, Jack, there's only 7 schools in that district. It's a result of a $250,000 budget shortfall in the fiscal 6-month period starting in January.
Well, are you short to kids?
There's a slight decline in enrollment, and that's resulted in the possible closure.
Well, here's the Liberal hopeful, capital H hopeful. Frank Cole, is it?
Yes, good morning.
Frank, how old are you?
41.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a lawyer.
Oh, God bless you, Frank. A lawyer. We need more lawyers in public life. That's what we need. Tell me, is this the first time you've run?
I'm glad you agree. Yes, this is the first time I've run, but I've been actively involved in the Liberal Party since my university days back in the mid-'60s.
And you don't think that Lee's a loser?
Absolutely not.
All right, what do you think about the sewage thing briefly?
Briefly. Well, briefly, we've got to keep the sewage out of Okanagan Lake. I think everybody agrees with that, and we have to have provincial support in order for us to do that. You know, the provincial government changed the finance formula.
Yeah.
Formerly, they would...
But Frank, looking at it from the practical side, the Liberals only got a handful of votes last time, and you haven't a hope in hell of making it this time, have you?
Well, we're going to let the people decide that.
Oh, I'm all for that, Frank.
I've been out door knocking. We've covered almost 2,000 homes in this last week, and there is a large segment of the population that are sick and tired of the confrontation politics between these two political dinosaurs on the left and the right.
Okay, I've got one of the dinosaurs here. What do you think? What are you telling people about the Bennett government, briefly?
I'm telling the people that that we are sick and tired of having the scraps off the SOCRED table, and that we need a change. The last provincial campaign, they went around and they promised that the economy was on the upswing and elect us guys and we'll keep the recovery going. And, of course, it's just gone downhill.
What's the unemployment? I'm asking both Lyle and you this question. What's the unemployment in Vernon or in Okanagan North?
I think it's around 17-18%.
What do you say, Lyle?
Actually, Frank, I'll correct your figures. It's standing presently at about 14+.
14+%. But it's not terribly visible in Okanagan North, is it, the unemployment?
Very visible,
I disagree.
But,
it is
the
visible.
thing that I want to know is, where's Thorlickson? Why won't he go on your show? You're not such a bad guy.
I'm one of the nicest guys in the business.
You keep telling everybody that, and I tend to agree sometimes, but Lyle is right. Thorlickson is not prepared to debate. They're keeping him under wraps. His campaign manager, or one of his other handlers, is always giving the interviews to the press and the public. They're afraid.
Okay, thanks, Frank. Best of luck.
Thank you.
I can say that because I know you won't win.
Yes.
Right, bye. After the break, calls to Lyle MacWilliam, NDP, who came all the way down to appear in Webster. I must get some calls. Who got from it? Wants to talk to me, a cabinet minister. After the break. On the telephone, I have the Honourable Tony Brummett, Minister of Environment. You may be wanting to respond to the accusation being made, Mr. Brummett, that your department is deliberately holding back permission to dump more effluent into Okanagan Lake until after the election. Is that correct?
No, Jack, it isn't. It's unfortunate that sometimes people decide to play politics with a very serious issue. Last winter, we were faced with an emergency situation, according to the best engineering advice that we had, that if we didn't allow some of the
effluent
to be put to be drained out of that dam, that the dam could break. And so we dealt with that. One of the conditions at that time was that it was on the condition that a proper waste management plan be developed, and that's in the process of being developed. And I went to Vernon, I believe it was around the end of September, and took a look at the dam, and I'm not satisfied that we're facing an emergency, and I would not consider any future dumping until, unless there was a dire emergency. And at this point, I don't see it, and it has nothing to do with the election. It's an environmental issue.
Here is Lyle MacWilliam. Do you wish to ask the Minister any questions?
Mr. Brummett, I directly challenge you on the fact that there was a meeting and it did take place, and it's my understanding, according to information that we have received, reliable information, that fisheries and waste management did request the city to dump before the drawdown of Cal Lake during the winter to protect the kokanee spawn at that time. They requested to draw down now while the water levels and the dilution factors were still high. If that is delayed and the dumping, and I agree, there's no crisis situation at this point, but in February, and I've talked to the people responsible here, in February, we may very well reach a crisis situation. Any significant drawdown of the water, Mr. Brummett, at that time, and I think you will agree, will cause a significant environmental impact on the kokanee spawn in that lake. That is the issue. I agree there's no crisis at this point.
Well,
but we can very well reach a crisis.
There was a proposal that if we would be in the position of having to dump into the lake, that it might be better to do it this fall. After taking the tour and looking at it, I'm not satisfied that...
Thank you, sir. You confirmed what I said.
And so, yes, there are risks. For instance, if we're wrong, there might be some difficulty in the spring. But at this point, I'm not satisfied that the risk of dumping into the lake outweighs the risk that we have to take in holding off any action. And I'm hoping that the emergency will never develop.
My point, sir, is that you are playing politics with this issue. If you were truly concerned with the environmental impact, that dumping would have gone ahead. I'm not in agreement with the idea of crisis management of this situation. My feeling is that we do need to get some movement, get some significant funding allocation in order to get the situation of crisis management out of the waste management.
Okay,
we need some long-term funding for this,
you would
sir.
accuse me of playing politics with the issue when that's exactly what you're doing.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brummett. Much obliged. Go ahead from Vernon, please.
Good morning. Lyle MacWilliam.
Yes, sir.
I'm a small businessman in Vernon, right in the downtown core. And I'd like to know what's going to happen about the unemployment around here with all of the mills going on 4-day weeks and everything else like that.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're going to start bringing in new industry back to Vernon, into this area.
A good question, sir. And if you possibly had listened to newscasts earlier this week, myself and federal finance critic Nelson Reese proposed a number of incentives for small business. In fact, I made a proposal just before the by-election was called to the Finance Ministry's tour, and I proposed a brief on tax incentives and for small business, and presented this to Hugh Curtis at that time. In addition, I proposed the development of what I called small business enterprise bonds to make available to utilize that $36 billion pool of personal savings that are locked up in savings accounts in BC.
But on the practical side, this man who might or might not vote for you is saying to himself, what the hell can the NDP do? They can't form the government even if McWilliams does win.
Yes, but I can introduce legislation through private members' bills and other mechanisms that I think will be a stimulation to the small business economy. And I propose to do just that.
Are you out of work at the moment, caller?
No, I've got my own small business. That's the only way I could get to work, was start my own.
And I also live right behind, just off Okanagan Landing.
Yeah.
Which is where they're spraying all that effluent, just
that's
up
correct.
behind us.
That's correct.
And that's Mr. Thorlickson's land, isn't it?
Is that a good idea to spray this effluent?
Well, it's better than putting it in the lake. It seems that all the people that control our country don't even live here and don't realize how much we depend on those lakes and the tourism. Prince George, I lived up there for a while, and I know that instead of dumping it in the Fraser River, they have a tractor-trailer unit that when the reservoir gets full, they start hauling it away and dumping it somewhere else or spraying it out in...
Okay, boy. Well, apparently all the candidates are concerned about it. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
Fine.
Good. I'm an ex-Kelownaite. I just moved down here a month ago from Kelowna. I've lived up there for 5 years, and I'm in support of, not in support of all this dumping into the lake. 5 years that I used to live in Kelowna, I used to be able to take a boat and go out at least 100 feet from shore and still be able to see the bottom of the lake. You can't even go out 30 feet from the shore and see anything anymore.
Yes, I agree.
Hold on. This milfoil is still a nightmare, isn't it?
It's a real problem, Jack. Yes, it is.
Nobody can beat it.
Well, it's a matter of control. You see, one of the problems with the milfoil, being an aquatic macrophyte, is that the nutrients in the water stimulate its growth.
Okay, leave it there.
Until we remove that.
Lyle MacWilliam, the NDP candidate in Okanagan North for the by-election on November the 8th. We heard from Frank Cole briefly, and we heard from one of Thorlickson's campaign managers, Brian Patty. Well, all I can say is may the best man win, and thank you very much for coming down to appear on the Webster program in Vancouver.
Thank you.
Much obliged. Thank you very much, Lyle MacWilliam. And I'll be back after the break. Going to start off tomorrow morning with a bright one on the economy. You can't escape it, you know. Everybody's worried about it. I'll throw three names at you. Matkin, Anstine, and Dobell. All very bright. They won't be here all morning, though. But you know how it is these days. It's difficult to get a happy story. Although I managed to be quite happy this morning with these three guys from Vancouver East. And I'll be back tomorrow, if I'm spared, at 9 a.m. precisely.